Today I'm going to share with you the top 5 things that catch out owner builders during their build. So I recently sat down with a guy called Chris Morris. He's a builder with over 20 years experience in the industry, and he's the owner of Australian Floor Plans, where you can purchase different floor plans for your owner build. So from his experience building as a builder, he said he constantly sees these 5 things reoccurring for all owner builders. So his experience in the industry is quite vast. He used to work for AB Jennings when they used to be one of the biggest builders in Australia. I think at the time they were building around 3,500 homes per year. But interestingly, at that time, owner builders cumulatively were building about 40,000 homes per year. So very kind of him to share this with us so that I can share it with you as well. So number one thing that catches most owner builders out is simply the fact that the homes don't get completed because owner builders tend to over specify what they want with the home. So finishes, all those sorts of things. I think as owner builders, it's easy to think, okay, well, we're saving all this margin so we can afford to build a bigger home, or we can afford those nicer finishes. And that may be the case in some circumstances, but I think we have to remember as well, obviously budgets can blow out a lot more than we expect. So number one thing is, don't over specify your build. If this is your first time building, don't go right up to what your total budget is. Leave yourself a buffer. Expect that you're probably going to pay 20 to 30 to 40% more than what you expect. And so your finishes, the size of your house, the kit you purchase, or the plans you purchase should reflect that. Point number 2, and I think this one is obviously very relevant for everyone, is your life can just get in the road sometimes. Work, family life, anything like that. When you're doing an owner build, you may not be in a situation where you can just take a few months off to complete the build. So in that case, work might call you in and say, look, we need you to do some overtime. And then the build sits there, right? Not getting completed. You might have frames out in the weather, getting damaged, everything like that. So life can simply get in the way sometimes when doing an owner build. So you just need to be prepared for that. Make sure you're allowing yourself enough time. If you're doing any parts of the build that are weather sensitive, like for example, having your frame up, not protected, if you're not at the lockup stage yet, just factor in, am I definitely going to be able to get the build to this point, or is it worth getting some extra help from a builder, for example, or at least someone or a couple of laborers that can just come on site and help you get to that stage quicker. So number 2, life can get in the way, things can happen. Just expect that some things might go wrong, and you keep that in mind when planning your build. At least if you can get to lockup stage, I think that's a huge advantage, and then everything else can come slowly along the way. Okay, point number 3, I think a lot of us have probably experienced this. It is extremely difficult to get finance for owner builds. So owner builder financing is much harder than just normal financing for a property purchase. One, we're not professional builders, so that comes with its own problems. And 2, construction loans are very different to normal purchasing a property loan. So basically construction loans are paid in stages based on how much of the home is completed. And you generally have to have a fair bit of that money up front first to pay for the first parts of the build before the next stage of funding is released. So that is really important. Look at your options with financing first. Don't go and purchase a block of land thinking I'll definitely be able to get to financing for the build. It doesn't work like that. Make sure you're prepared. A lot of people also make the mistake of going and trying to get financing once they've started the build, because they say, okay, let's see if we can just see how far we get along with the build. We've got 50 grand, 60 grand, whatever it is saved up. But then they get, maybe they get their foundations in, the frames up, something like that, and then they've run out of money. Banks will generally not touch you, or it will be a lot harder to get financing if you've already started your project. So just keep that in mind. If you think there's a risk, or you might run the risk that you're going to run out of money, get financing first. Get approved for your loan. If you don't draw down on the total loan, that's fine, but don't try and go get financing halfway through. Number four, not budgeting properly for your build. So this is something that definitely catches people out, and I have to admit I'm guilty of this as well. I didn't have a full build budget before starting this build. Basically, with kit home companies in general, because we're building a kit home, they say, look, as a general rule of thumb, you can take the price of the kit home, double it, and then add 20%, and that's probably where you're going to end up as a rough rule of thumb for your build. But there is no certainty of this, and it depends on the types of finishes you want. It depends on if you get any delays on your project. There are so many things that could happen. Generally, a builder, where they have an advantage, is they use estimators. So they'll have an estimator who comes in and says, okay, this is exactly the type of materials we need for the project. This is how much of everything we're going to need. This is the costings. If we get inflation and trades go up, if materials go up, let's build in a 20% buffer, whatever it is. Which is generally the builder's margin, right? They build in a margin of 20 to 30% in case things go wrong, and you should too. So just think about if you haven't thought about the materials you're going to need for your build and you're at the very initial stages of your build, banks will require this anyway. If you're getting financing for an owner build, they'll say, okay, show me your estimations. And generally, they'll also require that you actually get an independent estimator to come and estimate the total cost of your build. It's a really good thing. Even if you're not getting financing, I'd recommend it. Make sure you know exactly how much everything's going to cost you. Because as I said in the previous point, if you need financing later on, it's going to be tough. Okay, point number 5. This is our final point, and as an electrician myself, I can definitely speak to this. People don't allow for the fact that you may have a shortage of trades during your build. So depending on what's happening in the industry, you may have a shortage of any one trade. Like for example, when I was working down in Victoria, there was a huge push for energy efficiency, and almost all the electricians I knew were tied up working in this one government program, which meant that if you wanted an electrician for your household electrical, it was super hard to get them. Their time just wasn't available, and if you could get them, it was generally pretty expensive. So just factor in that, one, you may not be able to get that trade when you need them. Even if, for example, you schedule it with them in advance, things can happen. They can get sick, something can happen in their family or whatever it is. Just factor in that things will push back, but also prices could definitely increase. When I was speaking to Chris about this, who provided this information for the video, he said that there was one point in the building industry where, over a period of, I can't remember if it's 3 or 6 months, the price per brick installed for the brickies went from 10 cents to $1. So you can imagine the builders, if they had factored in, that cost at 10 cents per brick, and it's gone now during that build, they've already signed contracts with their customers up to $1 per brick. Builders went bust and everything. So you have to factor in things may go up. And that's the thing. If you can do a lot of the work yourself as an owner builder, obviously you've got to save money, but there will always be things you can't do and should not do as an owner builder as well, just certain parts of it. So I hope this video has been helpful. If it has, please let me know in the comments below. But I'd also really like to know if you've experienced any of these struggles yourself with getting financing for your owner build. Have you been stuck? Has life gotten in the way of you completing your build? Anything like that? I'd love to know. Big shout out and thank you very much to Chris Morris from Australian Floor Plans for supplying the information for this video. One of the first, and to be honest, most important decisions you'll have to make as an owner builder is whether or not to go for a traditional style kit home or to use your own plans and source the materials yourself. If this is your first time building and you don't want to be that adventurous, then I do recommend potentially looking at purchasing a kit home. However, if you do have some build experience or if you're willing to be up for the adventure, then you can look at using plans to source your own materials to save some extra margin. And that's where today's video's sponsor comes in. Australian Floor Plans offer 2 different plan types: concept plans and construction plans. Concept plans are generally used during the initial stages of a build for discussion and planning purposes. They're ideal for sourcing quotes from builders or early stage planning with your building designer before committing to full construction plans. Construction plans are designed for the typical owner builder aiming to manage the entire build themselves. These plans include all essential drawings and documentation needed for accurate quoting, council submissions, and trades coordination. These construction plans could be a great option for any owner builder looking to be adventurous and source their own materials rather than going for the typical kit home. Australian Floor Plans can also assist with the structural engineering for your site for an extra fee. All you need to do is provide a soil test and report from your local geotechnical engineer, and your foundations can be designed for you. If you haven't already got a floor plan for your owner build, check out their website. They have some really cool designs available. I've seen shipping home designs, tiny homes, large homes, duplexes. They've literally got everything. So go and check it out. Really reasonable prices. If you do want to purchase one, you can use the coupon code here below and you'll get a discount on your purchase. Okay, right. See you next time.